a quiet road, a flashing siren, a badge ignored. When Rookie Officer Bradley Higgins slammed a stranger against his cruiser, he thought it was just another easy arrest. He had no idea the man in handcuffs was Special Agent David Corbell of the FBI, and backup was already on the way. Within minutes, black SUVs would surround the station. Within hours, an entire police department would collapse under federal weight. This is the story of one traffic stop, and the reckoning that followed. The night air in Oak Haven was thick and humid, the kind of heaviness that made the streetlights hum and the cicadas scream. Special Agent David Corbell, 42 years old, 6'2", broad-shouldered, with sharp dark eyes and short-cropped black hair, was exhausted. He'd spent 14 hours auditing municipal corruption records across the tri-state region, far from his usual desk in Washington, D.C. He drove a plain rented gray sedan, sleeves rolled up over his forearms, his federal credentials tucked safely inside the jacket folded on the passenger seat. He wasn't dressed like an agent tonight. He looked like any tired man driving home. He kept to exactly 35 miles an hour, careful, controlled, a habit from years in the field. The road was empty, lined with oaks casting long shadows under the moon. Then headlights appeared in his mirror, closing fast. David didn't panic. He held his lane, hands steady on the wheel. The vehicle behind matched his speed, tailgating aggressively until the unmistakable outline of a light bar cut through the glare. An Oak Haven police cruiser. Red and blue light exploded across the dark road. A siren wailed. David sighed, flicked his turn signal, and eased onto the gravel shoulder. He shifted into park, cut the engine, and rolled down his window, hands placed carefully on the wheel, in plain sight, exactly as his training demanded. In his mirror, he watched the cruiser door swing open. A young officer stepped out, broad, muscular, walking with the swagger of a man who believed his badge made him untouchable. His hand rested on his weapon as he approached. David had no way of knowing yet just how badly this night was about to go, or how completely it would end. Officer Bradley Higgins was in his late 20s, built like a linebacker, his uniform straining across broad shoulders. He walked with an exaggerated swagger, the kind reserved for men who believed authority was something you wore rather than earned. His hand rested conspicuously on the grip of his service weapon as he approached the driver's window, a high-lumen flashlight already blazing. License, registration, and insurance. Higgins snapped, aiming the beam directly into David's eyes. David squinted, turning his head just enough to avoid the glare. "Good evening, officer. Registration and insurance are in the glove compartment. My license is in my back pocket. My jacket, with my federal credentials, is on the passenger seat." Higgins didn't lower the light. If anything, he leaned in closer. "Federal credentials? What are you, a mailman?" I said, "License and registration. Don't reach for anything else." "I'm a special agent with the FBI," David said. His voice was calm, steady, devoid of fear, a tone Higgins clearly wasn't used to hearing from someone sitting behind the wheel of a stopped car. "I'm going to slowly reach for my license," David continued. "Did I tell you to move?" Higgins barked, his voice rising, laced with sudden hostility. "Keep your hands on the wheel." David froze his hands instantly. "Officer, I am trying to comply. How would you like me to proceed?" "You fit the description of a suspect in a string of burglaries in this neighborhood," Higgins said. The lie came easily. Practiced, well-worn, the kind of line used to justify a fishing expedition. "Step out of the vehicle." David understood the law better than the man holding the flashlight. He also understood that arguing constitutional rights with an agitated, armed patrolman on a dark and empty road was a losing game. He would play this by the book, document everything, and take this department apart in daylight. "Understood. I am stepping out of the vehicle," David said softly. He pushed the heavy door open and rose to his full height, 6'2", broad-shouldered, carrying the quiet weight of a man who spent his mornings in the gym and his career in high-stakes environments. Something about David's size, or maybe just his calm, seemed to unsettle Higgins. Instead of backing down, he escalated. "Turn around! Hands on the roof of the car!" Higgins shouted, drawing his taser, the red laser dot landing squarely on David's chest. "Officer Higgins," David said, reading the nameplate on the young man's chest. "You are making a serious mistake. I am actively conducting a federal." He never finished the sentence. Higgins closed the distance in an instant, grabbed David by the collar and left arm, and shoved him violently forward, slamming him face first onto the hood of the cruiser. The impact rang out loud and metallic. The cold steel bit into David's cheek. The air was knocked from his lungs for a heartbeat. His training took over instantly. He offered zero resistance. He went completely limp, turning his head to the side to avoid a broken nose. "Stop resisting," Higgins screamed for the benefit of his own dashcam. Even though David hadn't moved a muscle, Higgins wrenched David's arms behind his back, twisting his left shoulder to an unnatural angle. The handcuffs bit deep into his wrists as Higgins cranked the ratchets far past the point of restraint. Tight enough to hurt, tight enough to leave marks. "I told you not to move, you piece of garbage," Higgins hissed into David's ear, his breath hot and stale. "Think you can come into my town and talk back to me? Fake federal credentials. That's a felony." David didn't flinch. He didn't shout. He simply turned his head, his dark eyes locking onto Higgins's face with a cold, unshaken calm. "You have no idea what you've just done," David whispered. Higgins laughed, a harsh, grating sound, and yanked David up by the chain of the cuffs, forcing him toward the back of the cruiser. He shoved him into the cramped rear seat and slammed the door. Sitting alone in the dark, the throbbing pain spreading through his shoulder, the cuffs cutting off circulation to his hands. David took a slow breath. He wasn't angry. He felt something colder, a calculating sense of purpose settling over him. Higgins had just handed the Bureau exactly the leverage it needed. The drive to the precinct took 15 minutes. Higgins took corners sharply, deliberately, tossing his handcuffed prisoner around the back seat. David braced himself against the plastic divider, his face an unreadable mask. The Oak Haven Police Department sat inside a squat, brutalist concrete building from the 1970s, its neon sign flickering and buzzing like a dying insect. Higgins pulled into the Sally Port, threw the car into park, and marched around to drag David out. "Let's go, tough guy." Higgins sneered, hauling him out by the arm. They walked through heavy steel doors into a booking room that smelled of ammonia and floor wax, lit by buzzing fluorescent tubes. A few officers milled about, drinking coffee, laughing. At the raised booking desk sat Sergeant Thomas O'Malley, a 20-year veteran with a graying mustache and the tired eyes of a man who hadn't chased a suspect in a decade. "What do we got, Brad?" O'Malley asked, sounding bored. "Got a live one, Sarge," Higgins said proudly, shoving David toward the counter. "Caught him prowling the north end, refused ID, got combative, resisted arrest. Oh, and he claims to be a Fed." A few officers chuckled. O'Malley smirked down at David. "A Fed, huh? You don't look much like a Fed to me, buddy." David stood perfectly straight despite the pain radiating through his bound arms. "My name is Special Agent David Corbell, FBI Counter-Corruption Task Force. Badge number 44789. I am officially requesting that you remove these handcuffs and contact your chief of police immediately." The room went quiet. Then Higgins let out a loud guffaw, breaking the silence. "See? Guy's delusional. I left his wallet and jacket in the car on the side of Route 9. Should I get it towed?" "Yeah, get a unit to tow it," O'Malley said, waving a hand. He looked back at David, his amusement fading into irritation. "Empty his pockets, Higgins. Let's see what this agent's got on him." "Wallet's in his back pocket," Higgins muttered, patting David down roughly. He pulled out a sleek black leather bifold and tossed it onto the booking desk. O'Malley picked it up, flipped it open. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute. O'Malley stared down at a heavy gold shield gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Beside it, a laminated identification card bore David's photograph, the seal of the Department of Justice, and the unmistakable holographic watermark of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. His rank, his clearance level. The signature of the FBI director himself, all the color drained from O'Malley's face. He looked like a sick gray ghost. His arrogant bluster vanished in an instant, replaced by pure, unfiltered terror. He'd confiscated dozens of fake badges in his career. This wasn't one of them. O'Malley looked up slowly, his eyes meeting David's. David stared back, expression carved from ice. "Higgins," O'Malley croaked, his voice cracked. He tried again. "Higgins, get over here now." Higgins swaggered over, completely unaware of the shift in the room. "What's up, Sarge? Warrant on him?" O'Malley said nothing. He simply turned the wallet around and slid it across the counter. Higgins looked down, his brow furrowed. He stared at the badge, then the ID, then back at the badge. His jaw went slack. The smug grin melted off his face, replaced by panicked confusion. "Sarge, that's gotta be fake," Higgins stammered, though he didn't sound convinced. His voice trembled. "I mean, he didn't show it to me." He was reaching. "Shut up, Brad," O'Malley hissed, panic bleeding into his voice. He looked back at David. "Agent Corbell, sir, there seems to have been a massive misunderstanding." "There is no misunderstanding, Sergeant," David said, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. "Your officer conducted an illegal traffic stop. He profiled me, he assaulted me, he falsely arrested me. He failed to run my plates, which are registered to the federal government. He failed to listen when I identified myself. He assaulted a federal officer." O'Malley swallowed hard, stepping down from the raised desk, pulling a key from his belt. "Sir, let me get those cuffs off you right now. We can sit in my office, get you coffee, clear this whole thing up." "Higgins is a rookie. He gets overzealous. Do not touch me," David commanded, taking a half step back. The authority in his voice stopped the sergeant cold. "Leave the cuffs exactly where they are. I want your chief to see them. I want the bruises on my wrists documented. I am entitled to one phone call, Sergeant. I will take it now." O'Malley glanced around the room. The other officers had suddenly found reasons to stare at the floor, shuffle papers, or slip into back rooms. Nobody wanted to be near this blast radius. "Sir, please," O'Malley begged, sweat beading on his forehead. "If you make a call, this goes up the chain. It becomes a whole thing. Let's just handle it in-house, the phone. Now." Defeated, hand shaking, O'Malley grabbed the desk phone and stretched the cord across the counter. Holding it to David's ear since the agent's hands remained cuffed behind him, David dialed a sequence from memory. A direct encrypted line to regional command. It rang once. "Weaver," a sharp voice answered. "Deputy Director Jonathan Weaver, the man overseeing the entire multi-state task force." "Jonathan, it's Corbell," David said calmly. "David, where are you? Your transponder went dark 20 minutes ago. I'm currently in custody at the Oak Haven Police Department. I was assaulted and unlawfully detained by a local patrolman. I'm still in handcuffs in their booking area." A 5-second pause. When Weaver spoke again, his voice had gone deadly quiet, carrying the full weight of the federal government behind it. "Are you injured?" "Minor contusions. Nothing broken," David replied, locking eyes with Higgins, who looked like he was about to be sick. "Understood," Weaver said. "Hold your position. Do not let them remove the restraints. I'm dispatching the rapid response team. ETA 8 minutes. We are locking down that building, copy that." O'Malley hung up the phone slowly. The silence in the precinct had become deafening. Higgins had backed against the far wall, staring at his own hands, breathing shallow and fast. Who was that?" O'Malley asked quietly. "That was my deputy director," David replied, shifting his weight, settling in to wait. "You might want to make sure your parking lot is clear, Sergeant." For the next 8 minutes, the booking room felt like a tomb. O'Malley desperately called Chief Richard Miller, waking him in the middle of the night, frantically trying to explain the disaster unfolding in his own lobby. Higgins paced, muttering to himself, trying to build a story that might save his career, utterly failing to grasp that his career was already finished. The only real question left was whether he'd see the inside of a federal prison. At exactly the 8-minute mark, a low, heavy rumble vibrated through the floorboards. The dispatcher, seated behind bulletproof glass, gasped. "Sarge, look at the exterior cameras." O'Malley practically dove over the counter. On the monitor, pulling into the front lot with terrifying synchronized precision, were 4 pitch-black Chevrolet Suburbans. Tactical strobe lights flashed aggressively across the brick facade. The vehicles didn't just park, they boxed in the entrance, sealing off every exit. Before the engines even cut, the doors flew open. A dozen heavily armed federal agents stepped out, tactical vests marked with bold yellow letters, FBI. They didn't walk. They moved with urgent, disciplined purpose. weapons at the low ready, stacking at the front doors. Karma hadn't just arrived. It had come with federal warrants and firepower. The heavy glass doors of the precinct didn't open. They were shoved apart with such force that a gust of wind tore through the stagnant booking room. A dozen agents in full tactical gear poured into the lobby with the fluid precision of a trained assault team. "Federal agents. Nobody moves. Keep your hands where we can see them." The lead agent's voice cut through the room like a whip. Every local officer froze. Cops pouring coffee dropped their mugs into the sink. Officers typing at their desks slowly raised their hands, eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't a courtesy visit from a neighboring jurisdiction. This was a hostile takeover. At the front of the tactical wedge walked Supervisory Special Agent Richard Kinsley, a deeply serious man with iron-gray hair, a sharp jawline, and eyes that missed nothing. He bypassed the terrified local officers entirely and marched straight toward the booking desk, his gaze locking onto David Corbell, who still stood with his hands ratcheted painfully behind his back. "Agent Corbell," Kinsley said, his tone shifting instantly from tactical command to professional respect. "Are you injured?" "Minor shoulder strain, Kinsley. The cuffs are cutting off circulation, but I'm operational," David replied, his voice still eerily calm. Kinsley turned his attention to Sergeant O'Malley, who was trembling so violently the keys on his duty belt jingled audibly. "Sergeant," Kinsley said, his voice dropping into a low, dangerous register. "Step away from the desk. Do not touch a computer, a telephone, or a radio. You are now a subject in an active federal civil rights investigation, understand?" "Yes, sir," O'Malley squeaked, backing away instantly. Hands raised to his chest, Kinsley gestured to a tactical agent holding a pair of heavy bolt cutters. "Cut him loose. We're not using their keys. I want those cuffs preserved as evidence." The agent stepped forward, positioned the steel jaws over the chain, and snapped it in half with a loud crack. David brought his arms forward, wincing as blood rushed back into his deeply bruised, purple wrists. He rotated his left shoulder slowly, feeling the deep ache where Higgins had slammed him against the cruiser. "Secure the building," Kinsley commanded his team. 2 agents in the server room now. Nobody touches the digital archives. I want every frame of dashcam, bodycam, and Sally Port footage from the last 2 hours locked down and mirrored to our drives. If a single file gets corrupted or accidentally deleted, I am charging this entire shift with obstruction of justice. As the tactical team fanned out, methodically taking control of the Oak Haven Police Department floor by floor, Officer Bradley Higgins remained frozen against the far wall. The arrogant swagger, the bullying smirk, the puffed-out chest, all of it had evaporated completely. He looked like a terrified child dressed in an oversized uniform. David rubbed his wrists and walked slowly across the room toward him. He didn't rush. He didn't look angry. He simply carried the undeniable quiet gravity of a man who now held absolute power to end a career, and possibly a life as anyone knew it. Higgins pressed himself tighter against the cinderblock wall, breathing ragged. "You see, Officer Higgins," David began, his voice echoing through the now silent room, "the irony here is that the Bureau was already looking at you. Our multi-agency audit wasn't only about financial corruption. The Department of Justice has been quietly tracking a statistical anomaly in Oak Haven for 6 months. A pattern of unconstitutional traffic stops, unlawful searches, and excessive force complaints that miraculously disappear from the records." Higgins tried to swallow, but his mouth had gone completely dry. I was just doing my job. You fit a description. There is no description," David said coldly. "There were no burglaries on that route tonight. We already checked the regional dispatch logs. You saw a black man driving a late-model sedan through an affluent neighborhood, and you made an assumption. You assumed I was an easy target. You assumed you could abuse me, arrest me, and invent a story your local prosecutor would blindly sign off on." David leaned in slightly, his eyes burning into Higgins. "You pulled over the lead investigator of the federal task force sent here to dismantle this exact type of policing." Before Higgins could stammer out any kind of defense, the precinct's front doors flew open again. Chief of Police Richard Miller burst into the lobby, a heavily built man in his late 50s, his uniform shirt thrown hastily over gray sweatpants, hair a mess, face flushed a deep, panicked crimson. "What in God's name is going on here?" Miller bellowed, trying to project authority, even as his eyes darted nervously across the heavily armed agents occupying his station. Agent Kinsley stepped forward, holding up a federal warrant sealed in a plastic folio. "Chief Miller, Supervisory Special Agent Richard Kinsley, Federal Bureau of Investigation. We are executing a federal search and seizure warrant on this precinct. Specifically all digital records, communication logs, and personnel files related to Officer Bradley Higgins." Miller stopped dead in his tracks, his bluster deflating instantly. He looked from Kinsley to David rubbing his bruised wrists, to Higgins cowering against the wall. He closed his eyes and exhaled long and slow. He knew exactly what this was. "He assaulted a federal agent, Chief," David said, stepping forward. "He conducted a racially motivated illegal stop, falsified his probable cause, physically assaulted me while I was fully compliant, and attempted to charge me with a felony to cover his tracks." Miller sighed, recognizing the agent's name from a regional task force briefing weeks earlier. "David, please, let me handle this internally. I'll take his badge tonight. I'll fire him tonight. We don't need a federal civil rights circus in Oak Haven." "It's entirely too late for that, Richard," David replied flatly. "Your department has allowed a culture of impunity to fester. You let officers like Higgins run wild because they generated municipal revenue through ticket quotas and civil asset forfeiture. The circus isn't coming to town. The wrecking ball is." Kinsley nodded to two of his tactical agents. "Arrest him." The agents moved toward Higgins. Wait, please," Higgins cried, hands raised. Tears finally welling in his eyes as the full weight of his situation crashed down on him. "I'm a cop. You can't do this. I have a family. Turn around and place your hands behind your back," one agent ordered. His voice devoid of sympathy, Higgins sobbed openly as he turned. The agents did not slam him against a wall. They did not yank his arms or hyperextend his shoulders. They worked with strict professional, by-the-book precision, placing heavy federal cuffs on his wrists, checking the spacing carefully to ensure circulation wasn't cut off. A stark, deliberate contrast to the brutality Higgins had dished out just an hour before. "Bradley Higgins," Kinsley read from a small card, "you are under arrest for violation of Title 18, United States Code, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, as well as federal assault of a sworn officer of the United States government. You have the right to remain silent." As Kinsley recited the Miranda warning, Higgins was marched through his own booking room. The local officers, men and women he had joked with just hours earlier, watched in stunned silence. Nobody stepped forward to defend him. The thin blue line evaporated completely under the crushing weight of a federal indictment. The aftermath was swift, brutal, and entirely real. The Department of Justice did not offer plea deals for leniency. Using the preserved dashcam footage, which clearly showed David's total compliance and Higgins's unprovoked assault, federal prosecutors secured a grand jury indictment in record time. Bradley Higgins was stripped of his badge, his pension, and his freedom. He was convicted of felony civil rights violations and sentenced to 5 years in a federal penitentiary. The man who once swaggered through Oak Haven's streets, flashlight in hand, would spend the coming years learning what it felt like to have no power at all. Chief Richard Miller was forced into early retirement under the shadow of a sweeping DOJ consent decree, one that completely overhauled the Oak Haven Police Department's training, hiring, and use of force policies. The department that had once let officers like Higgins run wild for the sake of ticket quotas and civil forfeiture revenue was rebuilt from the ground up under federal supervision, brick by brick. Special Agent David Corbell returned to his office in Washington, D.C. The bruises on his wrists slowly faded, the ache in his shoulder easing with time. But he didn't celebrate. It wasn't a victory to him. It wasn't a game at all. It was simply the hard, necessary work of ensuring that those entrusted with the power of a badge were never allowed to become the very criminals they had sworn to fight. Late one evening, sitting at his desk with the case file finally closed, David looked out over the quiet monuments of the city. The same city he had sworn to serve the day he first raised his right hand and took his oath. He thought about Oak Haven, about the empty road, about the moment Higgins had chosen arrogance over reason, and how that single choice had unraveled an entire department. He thought about all the people who never got a phone call to the deputy director, all the ones without a badge in their back pocket to prove what should never have needed proving in the first place, that they deserved to be treated with basic human dignity. That was the real fight. Not the one moment of karma that played out under fluorescent lights in a booking room, but the long, unglamorous work that came after. The audits, the consent decrees, the quiet dismantling of a culture that had let cruelty hide behind a badge for far too long. David closed the file, set it in the drawer marked closed, and allowed himself, finally, a small measure of peace. Karma had come to Oak Haven that night, and it had worn a federal shield. This story stands as a reminder that unchecked power always collapses under its own weight, and that justice, even when delayed, strikes back with undeniable force. True authority requires accountability. Nobody, no matter the badge they wear, stands above the law.